During Term 3 of 2016, Fiona and I implemented a collaborative project aimed at improving the communication skills of our students. This combined our roles of the classroom teacher and specialist to support the learners in a Year 5 and 6 class. The problem we've identified relates to the area of skilled communication and metacognition, in particular, thinking about thinking. We want our students to make connections to all their learning so it sticks and is understood. The problem is that the children's learning in their coding and robotics program is not being connected with their classroom learning. Coding and robotics is a new initiative in our school. In the first half of the year, the program facilitator concentrated on providing the students with experiences with new equipment and helping them to become familiar with the basics of robotics and coding. Since then, the program has developed past this, and the children are beginning to obtain new skills that can help them in their everyday learning. As the program facilitator and the classroom teacher, we needed to ensure that the links were made and were solid between the specialist program and the ongoing classroom program. The problems we faced are timing. Coding and robotics is available to the children for a maximum of 2 days per term, and those days are split over the term in 6 sessions. Planning. The classroom program and the coding and robotics program need to support each other. Making learning transparent. We want our children to build on their prior learning and make links and connections with new learning. Communication between all involved teachers and students. We are not all available to each other at the same time, so we needed to find a way to keep the lines of communication open, reflective, and available, preferably using a platform that is designed to allow a range of types of communication. For example, easy uploading a video, creating text or providing links to other resources, and specific commenting that all parties could share. This also needed to be socially safe for the age of our students, who are between 9 and 11 years old. Our digital and collaborative change is based around the platform called FreshGrade. FreshGrade is a program that we have chosen to coordinate the communication, feedback and thinking of our students. FreshGrade will allow the children to film themselves and upload it to their individual portfolios instantly. They can send it to all the portfolios in the group at once and view it at any time, any place, with their whānau and friends or individually. They can add their own ideas and thoughts later and do so with ease without the teacher's heavy involvement. The rationale behind our decision to make a collaborative and digital change are as follows. Coding and robotics is a newly developed program that has not yet been fully integrated into classroom programs. We have a growth mindset around this because of the newness of the program and the plan we want to implement to ensure its success. We believe we can improve on it, it just hasn't happened yet. The skills that the children have learnt since the coding and robotics program started need to be used in everyday classroom activities in order for them to be sustained. Luke teaches a specialised program to the children in Fiona's class, and the students' learning is not yet being carried over into the classroom. We feel we share similar pedagogical beliefs in this area of education, based on the theories of constructivism and constructionism, where we learn by doing. Drawing on Moscolo and Fisher's work on constructivist theories, we believe learning is perceived as an active, not passive process where knowledge is constructed, not acquired. That knowledge construction is based on personal experiences and the continual testing of hypotheses. Each person has a different interpretation and construction of knowledge process based on past experiences and cultural factors. And learning that fails to be based on prior knowledge and linked to the student's experiences, reflected upon and used, does not become long-term knowledge for the students. As Jerome Brunner discusses in his research on discovery learning in relation to the constructivist theory, we have based our inquiry on the students solving problems. Over the past term, we've followed a model of problem-based learning as a vehicle to help students make connections in their learning and identify the process of making meaning of their learning. Our digital innovation of a platform called FreshGrade has supported this initiative. Brunner identifies that students are more likely to retain knowledge attained by engaging real-world and contextualised problem solving than by traditional transmission methods. Transmission methods are a major part of past teaching, so we needed a way to feed in information and skills to the children by way of their own discovery. The first 5 weeks of the term were allocated to this to provide the students with enough scaffolding and support to build their own individual learning and discoveries. In order to understand how our innovation was implemented, the 21st Century Inquiry Plan can be outlined as follows. The intention, of course, is to move away from the 20th century teaching styles towards more of the 21st century teaching styles. Weeks 1 to 4 was the feeding in or front loading stage. Students investigated the water cycle. We looked at water in our community. We looked at where and how we get our safe, clean water. During this period, the water contamination in a neighbouring town occurred, and this became an immediate focus of investigation and discussion. We had visits from outside sources, including the regional council, irrigation specialists, and water testing services people, to further engage the students and help them to understand how the local water system worked. During this time, the students also began to communicate with the coding and robotics teacher via FreshGrade. He began to set them tasks using a program called Tinkercad. This was to feed in the skills the students would need as they progressed into their problem-based learning projects. Initial activities were not focused on the water theme, so as not to predetermine any solutions. During weeks 5 to 7, the students used this time to research and investigate a country suffering from water scarcity. They carried out their own individual investigations and made their own discoveries. They listened to visitors from those countries talk about the problems and issues in a variety of countries. The students discovered that the water scarcity problems existed for different reasons and set about developing solutions to those problems. In weeks 7 to 9, the students formed groups or progressed from this point individually. They made models of their solutions and presented their information. Some used Tinkercad and others different programs, but all communicated with Luke via FreshGrade during the times he was unavailable to them. We also used FreshGrade to assist them in making connections between the different things they were learning and to reflect on their thinking as they progressed. In John Seeley Brown's 1989 paper, along with Alan Collins and Paul Duguid, he states that many teaching practices implicitly assume that conceptual knowledge can be abstracted from the situations in which it is learned and used. Brown argues that this assumption inevitably limits the effectiveness of such practices. We planned for some of our conceptual knowledge to be fed in at the beginning of the inquiry, but reinforced and developed by the students' own discoveries. The students were able to build on this knowledge using research, experiments, reflecting, and feedback from peers in the community. We agree with Seeley in his research and didn't want to limit the effectiveness of the learning. All involved teachers discussed the danger of limiting the students' experience and directing their learning too closely. We needed to scaffold and support their direction as discussed previously in the 21st Century Plan, but kept in mind Seeley's research in order for the learners to be in control of their own learning. As a result of this innovation, we have both seen improvements in our programs. By operating collaboratively to implement the FreshGrade app, we also collaborated much more with planning our programs to ensure that the work lined up, which addressed one of our initial identified issues. Fiona organised the water inquiry and Luke adjusted the coding program to suit. The increased collaboration of the innovation ensured that the learning for the two areas was connected and transferred back and forth. This ensured the two programs supported each other. The students were able to very quickly pick up how to use FreshGrade. When it was assessed against Tony Vincent's app evaluation rubric, we realised that it was a robust and flexible option. In our planning stage prior to the implementation, we compared this app to the current alternatives like YouTube and Adobe Spark Video, but concluded that FreshGrade was the simplest method for making posts. Alerts enabled the teachers to see who was posting information and could respond appropriately, even if they were not physically in the class at the time. While we had taken for granted that the children could ask Luke for help in the past, the children had not fully realised this. By using FreshGrade and having posts from another teacher, the children realised they had permission and could access the people or information they needed when they needed. When the children were asked to respond to a post, they chose a variety of methods. Most children created their own post in response, although some also emailed directly. The result was that there were more conversations and feedback than what occurred traditionally on their blogs. It is important to note that this is an evolving development. Not all children responded or increased their communication. However, they all had access if needed. We always expected that this system would take longer than one project to become embedded into classroom practice. While FreshGrade may not have been highly engaging during the inquiry work for all children, we have noticed that it was used effectively during other topics like maths. Some children seem to rely on their posts as a bank of resources for revision, almost like their own personal Khan Academy. When we initially chose FreshGrade, we hoped that it would improve the children's skilled communication, as outlined in the 21st Century rubrics created by ITL. The children would need to communicate over time, extended communication, multimodally, with supporting evidence, and to a specific audience. We also wanted the children to think more deeply about their learning and express themselves in a way that showed they had made links between the things they were learning. As an example, Ella reflects on how her parents helped her, backing up Vygotsky's social constructivist approach that emphasises the role of the community in mastering concepts.
Ella, how did you find out the information that you needed?
Well, I did a lot of research, and a lot of the time when I needed to find out information, I went to Mum and Dad because Dad does a lot of work with water and cleaning it.
In the next reflection, Fiona and Joe talk about the benefits of collaboration.
So you worked with Blake
Yep.
together. So how did you find working with him?
He was really helpful. He got work done. He got his work done fast.
That's a big help for you too, isn't it? Really
Yeah.
helped you push you on and stay focused.
And he's a good hard worker.
He sure is, absolutely.
Initially, we thought the children would use video more frequently to deliver their ideas, however they didn't. Instead, most chose to write their responses and post them into FreshGrade. We suspect that they were not yet comfortable with thinking on their feet while being videoed, preferring to have the time to create their responses by typing. The detail, depth and thought of their responses have increased. While the digital aspect of the plan was initially seen as the main vehicle for improvement, it was ultimately the improved planning and collaboration between the teachers that allowed the children to succeed.